Hey, I'm Jim Best, and I'm one of your hosts for NDI November. You can register at ndinovember.com to get access to all of these great webinars and to register to win one of our great prizes that we are giving away throughout the entire month. One of the things that I really look forward to most about hosting the NDI November shows is speaking to some of the dealers that we have available to us from around the country. Today, I asked Jesse from Midtown Video to join us. Hey, Jesse.
Hey Jim, how you doing?
Doing great, man. How are you?
I'm great, thank you.
One of the things that our audience really likes to hear about are the stories from the trenches, the stories from our dealers and integrators who are using the NDI products into real world applications, real workflows. And we're going to highlight just a few of those in just a moment. Before we get into today's show, let's start that bump.
NDI November, our third annual NDI November. Go to ndinovember.com right now and register and catch out all the great webinars and things we're doing all about NDI. You're going to learn all about how that technology works and all the latest products in that technology. Plus, you're going to get a free digital version of the Unconventional Guide to NDI when you register. We've got prizes. What kind of prizes? We've got PTZ cameras. We've got Wirecast. We've got New Tech University. We've got the book, ndinovember.com. Register now.
So today for NDI November, we invited Jesse Miller from Midtown Video to join us to talk about some of the success that he has had with NDI workflows. Jesse, can you take a moment and introduce yourself and Midtown Video to our audience?
Sure, I'm Jesse Miller with Midtown Video. We're in Miami, Florida. We have global reach with really cool installations around the world, mostly in South Florida, but we get into the Caribbean and New York. We specialize in broadcast and streaming. Okay. We also specialize in large venue sound and video.
That's great. And we're going to talk about some of those specialties today. We're going to talk about how you've had successes with these NDI workflows. And when you and I were talking about some of the recent applications you've had, one of them that really interested me was what you guys did with the Arts Center for Performing Arts. Can you tell us a little bit about this installation?
Sure. The Adrian Arts Center for the Performing Arts is Miami's premier performing arts center. Even the building itself looks very cool and futuristic. And the team over there is really advanced. So James Thompson, who heads it up, and Kathleen Martinez, who started out as an intern in their organization and is now their TriCaster operator. Wow. They really add a lot of value. You know, it's one thing to have cool stuff, but the way that they use it and implement it and rehearse it and do dry runs is awesome. It's a very high profile board of directors over there. Okay. The kind of money that has to get donated to operate a performing arts center that hosts, you know, ballets and philharmonic symphonies, and the level of production that goes on in that place is a big deal. So when they have their quarterly, you know, board meetings, there's no room for messing up. And they're the kind of board members that aren't necessarily going to appear in person. They're going to appear from their homes or from their offices in you know, Wall Street or whatever to advise and guide the leadership and finances of the organization. So James and Kat and their team have a real challenge. They've got in-house audience, they've got remote participants, and then they've got the public to whom it's being streamed, these meetings, and they need to deliver a production. They need to deliver an experience to the at-home viewer as though they were at the meeting. So needless to say, the ease that NDI brings to their production was a huge relief. James needed not just a TriCaster, but a portable TriCaster setup. You'll see in one of our photos later on, maybe, where we're at the Arts Garage.
Okay. Oh, this one here, yes.
So the same system that they're using to stream their board meetings, they have to pack up and take on the road, right? They have these sister venues where they operate from in order to stream local art performances as well.
Okay.
So it's not just about designing a camera package and switching and streaming package, but it also had to be mobile. So you can see there's a PTZ Optics joystick control on there. We've got a couple of the newer BirdDog P120 cameras, okay, which is great. And if you back us up to the board meeting, photo, you'll see, there is a bit of a table where the attendees were sat. So James and Kat mocked up the conference table in their office and have all, monitors and multi-viewers all over the place with, we're not getting the board of directors attendees to attend rehearsals. So they did these cool things where they had mannequins and posters on the walls, and they would just put the name of the board member that they were simulating under the photo of the mannequin or what have you. And so they were locking in all their camera presets for recall, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that when the day of the show came, they'd already been through it, 20, 30 times, which was really impressive to me.
I would totally expect a performing arts center to have a creative solution like that to be able to get all these productions up and going. And I think one of the great things that this story tells and the equipment that you help them put together is not only are they getting the portable capability of a TriCaster Mini, but they're also getting the portability of having their network drive the feeds from the camera with NDI. So they could basically take that TriCaster Mini and set it up that anywhere where they can get onto the local network and now access the cameras in other parts of the venue.
So even more than the local network, we like to recommend that our clients bring a switch with them.
Okay.
We're big fans of the Netgear MS4250 line, the AV specific switches. That way we have a little bit more control of, when you show up and you're like, hey, can we get on your network? You might be asking for trouble.
Sure.
But if you show up and you're like, don't worry, everything that's network connected, I've got my own PoE. I know it's a 1 gig non-blocking backplane. In this photo where you see equipment used, there's a mention of NewTek Connect Sparks. They have 8 Sparks.
Wow.
Because you'll see on that table, all those little 15-inch monitors,
Yep.
Those are just like $150 computer monitors that they bought on Amazon. But obviously, the joystick operator needs a multi-view. He needs to see all the cameras.
Sure.
They have a switcher operator, they need a multi-view. Certain people only need program. Certain people only need the incoming feed of one of the, remote guests, whether it's Skype TX or whatever. So they bought 8 Sparks to have the flexibility of not only incorporating their existing ENG camcorders, but also pushing out, whether it's a multi-view or a program or a preview feed, to all of those little monitors on their desk. They're using NDI to deliver that content so that they can sort of switch and route in software, which I think is very cool.
Absolutely. And for those of you joining us today who are not familiar with the products that Jesse's referring to, the Connect Sparks are basically NDI converters. You can take any HDMI video source or SDI or now even a 12G SDI video source and convert it to NDI using the proper Spark converter. And now you can take all those cameras and integrate them within that same NDI infrastructure like Jesse just described. I think that's phenomenal. It really shows you that flexibility of what this NDI workflow can offer.
Is anybody from your viewing audience maybe in Miami right now? Or from Miami, I should say?
You know what? We have a live Q&A available. If you're from Miami, why don't you just say hello to us in the Q&A? We'll see if there's anyone there who can raise their hand and give us. Why? You got an invitation for us to join you at a nightclub or something?
Just interested to know. I mean, maybe they've seen the Arch Center over on, what they're going from 395 getting northbound on 95 and look over the express lane and they know what I'm talking about when you see that building.
Yeah.
On the way to the beach. It's kind of impressive. Oh, you got the FIU picture up. That's a perfect story for it. Not just the NDI Spark. Actually, at the FIU situation, what we were using was Bird Dog Flex,
Yep.
which is just like an NDI Spark, but instead of the Spark, which can either be an encoder or a decoder, these Flex units, you buy them in one direction. It's either HDMI into NDI or NDI out to HDMI.
Okay.
But the challenge here was our friends at FIU Athletics had a TriCaster TC1, which has 4 SDI inputs, but they needed a 5th camera.
Okay.
And they're like, we don't know what to do. We've got this PTZ. We've got our 4 field cameras, sure, but every now and then we want to cut to our announcers in the media booth. Like at the end of halftime, we want to get their analysis and get them on camera. They were out of SDI inputs. I said, no problem. For like $400, right? We'll take the output of your PTZ camera into a Bird Dog Flex. And now I've added a 5th camera to the TriCaster using NDI.
And that's great. And that's one of the easiest ways or easiest stories that lead you down this NDI path. In the hardware world, you're always going to be limited with the number of IOs that are available. And if you remember back to the days of when we talked about the SDI switchers, that's exactly how you chose the right switcher for the job. How many SDI
How
inputs do
many
you need,
inputs?
right? Now, in the NDI world, if your NDI infrastructure can handle it, then you have that expandability. And NewTek, being the company that brought NDI to the table, is doing a great job of complementing their SDI workflows, HDMI workflows, and NDI to give you that expandability of all of their systems, like the TC1 that Jesse mentioned with FIU. So we talked about performing arts. We've talked about sports production.
Well, don't leave FIU just yet,
Okay.
because that one little change, right?
Yep.
So like recognizing that they only had enough SDI inputs for 4 cameras.
Yep.
So we introduced the BirdDog Flex to get the 5th camera in NDI. So now they're starting to, in the operations menu of their TriCaster, they're starting to search for NDI sources to find the BirdDog Flex that we introduced for the announcer's cam. But that made them realize that just down the hall, the in-house marketing team, the guys that do the video board, are also using a TriCaster. So now their eyes are open to all of the additional camera feeds coming in to the marketing guys. So the streaming team thought they only had 4 cameras. We give them a 5th camera. It opens their eyes to all the other NDI sources. Now we're pulling in wireless cameras that are, in the stands looking at the audience, and it really changed their approach to production because of this multiplication of available sources.
It's the age-old story of be careful what you wish for, right? Once you get to the point where you need that 5th video input, now the wheels start spinning. Well, how many can I actually add to it? One of the things that I know a lot of people are doing in NDI workflows is they're taking NDI scan converter, taking a feed from a laptop, and using that for presentation materials. Even in an athletic environment, you could use that to overlay a scoreboard or overlay any other titles about players or B-roll footage. Maybe even you have a canned media library that now you have some guy in the press box that's pulling up a clip of the home run that the running back ran off a week before. You can do all of that very easily just by putting all of these different sources on the network itself.
The reverse is also true. These announcers I keep referring to, sure, they're looking at the field, but if they wanted to see the game feed, all right, we didn't need to add a broadcast monitor with an SDI output. We just used their laptop, pull up NDI, studio monitor, and now they're able to watch any source, any destination, any multi-view out of the TriCaster and follow the game in real time, sort of, to see what the viewer is seeing. I thought that was very cool.
You know what? That's a great tool when the referees go into the replay tents. And this is really one of the things that NDI does enable. It enables you to duplicate some of those broadcast workflows that required very advanced equipment before. And you can do the same in much simpler ways through an NDI network within the sports stadium, within the performing arts center, within a school, a corporate AV boardroom, or anything like that.
Good transition to the schools.
I would like to pretend I didn't know it was there, but I absolutely did. So Jesse, tell us a little bit about Our Lady of Lourdes Catholic High School and what you guys did with them.
Our Lady of Lourdes, Lourdes, tricky. So at OLA, OLLA they call it, the Catholic high school in Miami has a great broadcast program, and you can see a couple shots in here from inside their control room looking into the studio. And they got that part right. You want your control room to have sort of a glass window so you can see into the studio and see what's going on. They've got a 3-camera setup there. You see they've got the wall painted green, perfect for virtual sets built into the TriCaster Minis. And they came and said to me, we'd like to be able to broadcast live either from our gym or our cafeteria where they have an auditorium stage, or our grotto. They have this very cool sort of natural grotto on site at the high school where sometimes they'll hold a mass from there, or just an assembly or what have you. So, Midtown builds a lot of higher end high school morning announcement broadcasting systems for charter schools and private schools that run fiber throughout the facility. So we're using real expensive Sony, studio cameras with CCUs and SMPTE fiber connections. And in those $500,000 studios, as long as you got fiber run from the control room to the gym, you can just move your studio camera into the gym and plug in your SMPTE fiber. And now you're controlling the show from your control room, but your cameras have been remoted to that remote location. And our friends at Our Lady of Lourdes, they did not have a $500,000 budget for the studio. We worked out sort of a 1/10 multiple of that.
Okay.
And so we've got a couple cameras in the control room, and they were connected by HDMI back to the TriCaster. You got cameras in the studio, HDMI back to the TriCaster. But in order to remote those cameras, we devised a scheme where we put a Netgear MS4250 router in like an SKB sort of rack mount road case.
Okay.
Right? And instead of going directly HDMI from their Canon cameras, we added BirdDog Flex HDMI to NDI encoders, BirdDog Flex inputs to the top of each camera. And now the cameras are sending a signal over the network. So next we just sat down with their IT department and said, we'd like to make sure that one network port in the grotto, one network port in the cafeteria, and one network port in the gymnasium get sort of VLANed so that they're on the same subnet as the network in the control room. And this way, the camera, the tally, the intercom, which is all ran on NDI, are remoted into these other locations. By virtue of having the network switch there, we'll connect all three cameras to the network switch. One port of that switch gets connected to this one port on the VLAN, same as the control room. And now the girls can run their studio productions, so from the control room, with their cameras remoted to any of these other three locations. The coolest part is when they mix it. So they're doing their studio show, they've got their two news anchors in the studio, operating from the control room, and they remote one single camera, let's say, to the gymnasium where they're doing a little bit of a pregame before a volleyball game. Okay. So they can throw live to the reporter and camera op in the gymnasium. That camera is fed back NDI to the TriCaster in the control room that is also running the studio show on the other side of the glass window. Very cool, very sophisticated. And again, we did that on 1/10 of a budget of the SMPTE fiber installations that we would do at sort of the larger charter or private schools. Now, I don't want to discourage $500,000 investments in high school television production facilities. Absolutely. Definitely go for it. But in the event that you can't get it done for that, right? In the event that we haven't raised a $500,000 yet, we could do it for $50,000 as long as we do it on NDI. Pretty cool.
Yeah, no, that's very cool. And it gives you that freedom to not only bring all of these cameras back into the production studio the way you described, but Jesse, one of the questions that we asked Tarif yesterday when we were speaking with him is, what areas are you seeing NDI going to disrupt next? And his answer to that was the digital signage world. As you're talking about this application, with these cameras being mounted throughout the school, sending everything back to the video production feed, I'm thinking of a high school here in our area that actually used NDI the other way to send the feed from their studio for the TV news report back to TVs so that students can watch this live production as it's happening. So now where you outlined the BirdDog Flex encoders on the back of the cameras, we can take a BirdDog Flex decoder and put it on the back of a TV in the auditorium, let's say, and students can watch the whole production while it's happening that way also, giving you that true pull-push capability that NDI offers. Basically, if you can take anything and put it onto the network, you can turn that video into a source itself, right?
When you start adding an NDI decoder, so right now it's hardware, but you could sort of formulate in your mind, monitors will have a network jack input and be native NDI decoders, just the monitors, right? So now you're saving the dollars on the hardware. But once you are outfitting every single classroom with an NDI enabled monitor, whether in hardware, like in the monitor or with a decoder, it brings you to a new level of network management requirements.
Oh, sure.
You got to start talking about preparing the network backbone for multicast recording so that the normal LAN traffic doesn't get drowned out by 1,000 encoders and 1,000 decoders trying to push like 120 megabits per second of broadcast ready, video graphics through the network.
Yep.
So yeah, totally, an awesome method for distribution and so useful, right? Using Studio Monitor and KVM, when we were in the gymnasium, we didn't even have to be we didn't even need somebody in the control room operating the TriCaster. We just had a laptop connected to the same switch as the cameras, and we had used Studio Monitor to see the multi-view and KVM to switch the show. The stuff you can do on NDI is really spectacular, and as you add more and more endpoints that are NDI enabled, it really requires a thoughtful approach to the network infrastructure, the network architecture, so that we are sort of segmenting this audio video traffic, keeping it robust, keeping the delivery reliable, and not like strangling your bandwidth to prevent any other kind of non-video traffic to get through.
Sure, absolutely. You know, and you've mentioned a couple of times already the Netgear M4250 switches. These switches have really been one of the greatest things to happen to NDI. We call them the workflow solution over and over again. Super easy to set up, super easy to use. They work in these installations that you're talking about, so much so that we actually invited the guys from Netgear to join us on the show next Tuesday at 3 p.m. to talk a little bit more and to show off that user interface. So if you want to see the M4250, phenomenal, isn't it?
Yeah, I've been calling it MS. Thank you for reminding me the correct pronunciation there. M4250.
No problem at all. I don't think Netgear will be offended at all. We got close enough, but really, it's such a great product line. It works well not only for NDI and every flavor of NDI. It works well for Dante Audio and any kind of audio or video over IP. Like I said, it's just a great solution. And if you join us right here next Tuesday at 3 p.m., we'll be able to show off that user interface a little bit. We'll show you some of the setup, and we'll have the guys from Netgear join us to talk about some of these workflows as well. As
you know, now that you mentioned the guys from Netgear, I want to tell you about one experience I didn't prepare a photo for, but I think you're going to like it.
Absolutely.
You got time?
Absolutely, please.
So, Danny Sell of BBS Entertainment here in Miami is a broadcast engineer. He manages a lot of graduations for high schools. He used to operate the broadcast sort of class and the TV announcements club for local high schools here. He's a big proponent of NDI, and he's been experimenting with ubiquity switches.
Okay.
And he's got 3 BirdDog P200s. He's got a couple of Sony HXR NX5s using BirdDog Flexes to get them into NDI, and he's got a TriCaster 460, right? So it's not even the latest model TriCaster, but he's got TriCasters that are NDI enabled. And he was using BirdDog's tool, their sort of graphical analyzer tool. You know what I'm talking about?
I do, absolutely, yes.
If somebody remembers the name, remind me, because it's useful in this story. Anyway, he noticed a little bit of fluctuation. He was monitoring he was monitoring his network using NDI's using BirdDog's visualization tool to monitor NDI traffic on the network and watch the health of his sources and destinations. And he noticed that, as long as I've only got 3 cameras live, we're good. But as I add the 4th and add the 5th camera, their NDI feeds to the network, things start to look a little fuzzy. And I said, Danny, I know how to help you. My concern is that if we just go to BirdDog, they're going to say, oh, it's the network switch. And if we just go to the network switch, they're going to say, oh, it's the camera or it's the TriCaster. And if we just go to NewTek, they're going to say, well, it's got to be the camera, the switch. So I walked with giants one day. I assembled a conference of the most incredible thinkers on these topics. We had Kane Peterson from NewTek.
Great guy.
All right. We had John Knutson from BirdDog John.
Great guy.
All right. We had Glenn Seaman from Broadfield, a man who has to touch all of these things.
Yep.
Oh man, I don't remember the gentleman's name from Netgear, but one of their leading engineers, including Cody was on for a portion of it.
Yep.
certainly he was contributing, but that I should have prepared and reminded myself. I think it was Tony. Anyway, the Netgear high-end engineers, and these dudes really dropped science on us. The knowledge that we gained just from spending 45 minutes trying to troubleshoot with them was incredible. But I do want to share that. You mentioned how easy the Netgear M4250 line makes it for NDI, for Dante. I learned in this conference that NDI 5 solved the incompatibility of NDI 4 with Dante.
Right.
So we used to not be able to have them on the same subnet. You used to have an NDI subnet and a Dante subnet because of how NDI 4 went. NDI 5 sort of solved that problem. You can have them on the same subnet now. But the most important thing is, as great as the M4250s are from Netgear at handling the video traffic, they're really great at also handling the not video traffic. If you need to segment your two LAN types, if you need to segment your data, your VoIP, your regular LAN stuff over here, and your video, your AV over IP, your demanding multicast traffic over here, that's what the M4250 line really makes it easy. Kick up two VLANs super quick, ports 1 through 8 are this, and ports 9 through 24 are that.
Yes.
Visually, GUI, it's a super useful tool. I agree with you very much, and it should be noted that the engineers responsible for this technology are responsive.
Yes.
They'll talk to us, they'll get on a call with us, they'll help review our architecture and the interoperability with these third-party parts, which is really critical. When you talk about NDI, it's computers, it's cameras, it's monitors, it's network switches, it's every kind of endpoint you could imagine. So you can't just be an audio guy or a video guy or a computer guy or whatever. When you get into NDI, you're touching everything: tally, intercom, control,
yes.
RS-232 control, these PTZ cameras. Anyway, I'm very excited and passionate about this.
No, and that's why I appreciate the story, and quite frankly, that's why I invited you to be on the show. We can invite all the partners and all the manufacturers we want, and they're going to tell us about all the great features of the hardware switch and all the great features of the production system. When we get stories from integrators like yourself who are out in the field trying to make these things work, and you're focusing on the solution, not on the product that got you there, but just that you got there. Those are the stories that I think are really the testament to why we do an entire month on NDI broadcasts. And the tool, by the way, that you were looking for is Bird Dog Dyno, D-Y-N-O.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Bird Dog Dyno. Dan and Eamon down in Australia that are constantly cranking out these awesome products from Bird Dog deserve a heap of praise. They name their stuff very well. I like that name, Dyno. And just to bring it home and to put the spotlight back on Broadfield, it was Glenn Seaman from Broadfield who figured out what the ultimate problem that Danny was facing. It wasn't a problem in the network switch. It wasn't a problem in the Bird Dog cameras. It wasn't a problem in the NewTek TriCaster. Danny's USB to RJ45 network adapter said 1 gigabit on it, but it wasn't passing 1 gigabit traffic. It was only doing like 450 megs. So when he swapped that out for a higher end USB 3 to RJ45 network interface, all of the meters on Bird Dog's Dyno NDI analysis tool said all 5 of your cameras are running fine.
and that's great. And I'm glad, he was definitely available to help out with that. And for our audience watching today, I want you to know that there are these NDI certified professionals like Jesse at Midtown Video, like our own Glenn Seaman, like the vendors with Netgear, with Bird Dog, with NewTek. We have the resources you need to get the right solution for your workflow. Jesse, you and I spoke a little bit about the Bird Dog encoders and decoders and the digital signage world. One of the questions that popped up, which seems to pop up on every forum lately, is about the Bird Dog Play and whether or not the Bird Dog Play is shipping. The Bird Dog Play is in fact shipping, is in stock now at Broadfield, and is shipping out to dealers. Yes, Jesse, yours are on the way, I promise. They're shipping out to dealers all across the country. These units have been backordered for quite some time. It's going to take us a little while to feed the channel. But like I said, Jesse, we've got some headed to you today. We'll have more headed to you in a few weeks, and you'll be able to satisfy all of your customers' needs with the Bird Dog Play as well.
Awesome. Awesome.
So I don't think we have any other questions that have come through. You and I have addressed them as they have come through. I do appreciate you talking about all the different products and tools that you used in the installations we talked about today. I also love that you mentioned the Bird Dog Dyno, because one of the things that we really like that Bird Dog is doing is focusing on these cloud tools and software tools to get even more out of your NDI workflow. So much so that we invited Dan at Bird Dog to join us this month, doing a show just talking about the Bird Dog Cloud and a lot of their software tools. And we have a show coming up with Jake from Bird Dog talking about all the Bird Dog hardware products that we talked about today. So again, register at NDINovember.com. You can see videos like this, videos from all of our manufacturing partners, and learn all about these NDI workflows and more. Jesse, before I let you go, I want to leave you with any parting words.
Oh, I really appreciate being a part of NDI November. I love it. I could have retold some of my favorite stories from last NDI November, but I was trying to keep it fresh. But every time I tell a story about how NDI like saved a production, it's really impactful, and we keep adding those stories to the quiver now. So stop me if you've heard it before. You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. And that's the beauty of YouTube, is we still have last year's video available, and we will post to that. So if you liked what you heard from Jesse at Midtown Video, you can watch last year's video as well. Jesse, thanks for joining us. I can't wait to talk to you again for next year's NDI November.
I appreciate you having me. It was great. Thank you, Jim.
Our next show coming up is scheduled for tomorrow afternoon at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time, where we will have Jeremy Morris and Chris Burgos from NewTek talking about NDI workflows with NewTek products, like the TriCaster Mini 4K that Jesse showed off today. If you want to learn more about these NewTek TriCaster systems, tune in tomorrow afternoon right here at Broadfield.live. Register at NDINovember.com. Look for this schedule and more. And don't forget, your registration gives you access to all of our great giveaways, including Bird Dog cameras, Wirecast software, and more. Tune in.
Are you giving away the Broadfield light-up tumblers still? These were a hit with our clients.
I might be able to find one or two more of those.
All right.
By special request only, though. Thank you so much for joining us. Tune in tomorrow afternoon. Until next time, cheers.
NDI November is going on all month long for all things NDI. Your one-time registration gains you access to all the informative webinars with great guests and tons of giveaways. Check out the full schedule and register at NDINovember.com. Giveaway prizes include Bird Dog P100, JVC PZ200N camera, Telestream Wirecast Pro license, NewTek University class, and more. See all the giveaway prizes and register now at NDINovember.com.